Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. We've been talking about heroes of the Bible, and as I've told you many times, and I'm going to tell you again, the real hero of the Bible is God. And anytime there is a hero that we discuss, we need to understand that we are discussing men whom God used to fulfill his purpose, or women that God used to fulfill his purpose. And that's today's lesson. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about a woman named Esther. And Esther's an interesting character because it doesn't seem like Esther is going to be a hero when you first start reading the book of Esther. Esther is, it seems like, she's a beautiful woman whom a king chooses to be his queen. And so the way the story changes, she's taken in, she's groomed to be this king's wife, and the king finds her stunningly beautiful, but there's a scene going on outside of that. There are some other characters in the book of Esther. One is named Mordecai, the other one's named Haman, and Haman wants all of the Jews who live in this land killed. All of them. And so he's convincing the king to make an edict to do this, and Mordecai goes to Esther and says, Esther, you need to help us because you need to go see the king. And Esther's like, yeah, but if I go see the king, I could be killed. And anyway, interesting story. But what I want to share with you is how Esther is put in this position at just the right time to do just the right thing to save the people in just the right way. And that's how God works. Sometimes it doesn't seem like there's any hope, there's no chance, there's nothing that we can do to alter the circumstances, and then God sends somebody or prepares somebody at just the right time for just the right moment in just the right way for just the right solution. And that's the story of Esther. God uses Esther to accomplish a feat that seemed hopeless, to rescue a people that seemed doomed. And I just want to read a little bit of what Mordecai tells Esther when he calls her and asks her to do this, or calls out to ask her to do this. Here's what he says in chapter 4 and verse 14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. I love what Mordecai says to Esther because it shows a tremendous amount of faith on the part of Mordecai. And he says something similar that the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, right? He's like, if you don't do this, I am fully convinced that God will send or use someone else. But in the process, you may die, and so. But then he goes one step further. He goes, who knows? This might be your time. This might be the very moment that you were put in this position for. And here's the crazy thing. Most of us can look back at a time and see when God was moving the pieces, right? It's as if it's a chess match where God was moving the pieces to just the right place at just the right time for just the right moment to do just the right thing. And it amazes us. Sometimes we're that person that's there at just the right time for such a time as this. I love the fact that God works things out, and he doesn't necessarily counsel with us to figure out how to work things out. But the scripture tells us, and I read this passage, and as we read through scripture, this passage comes more and more alive to me. God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. God is working things out in ways we cannot see, to accomplish things we don't understand, to bring glory to his name. And he uses us for this. And I think it's beautiful that Esther was chosen to be a queen so that God could use her to be a deliverer. And so just to give you the rest of the story of Esther, Esther does go in and see the king. In fact, before she does, she sent a reply to Mordecai. This is verse 18. She sent a reply to Mordecai, "Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days and nights, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went and carried out all of Esther's instructions. And I love this because Esther knows that there is this danger that doing this thing out of faith may cost her more than it rewards her. She says, if I perish, I perish. This kind of faith-based action is life-changing, not just for yourself, but for many others. Some you'll see, some you'll never see. Here's my encouragement to you. As you go through the day, realize that you are in the moment you're in for such a time as this. You're like, yeah, because at that, yes. God is constantly moving. God is constantly working. I want you to be prepared for when God uses you. And so, if I perish, I perish. So Esther goes in to see the king. The king receives her in. She tells the king all the plans of Haman to have the Jews killed by a guillotine. And then the king has Haman killed and rescues the Jewish people. I love what Mordecai says. I'm going to go back to this. I love what Mordecai says. He said, God will send a deliverer. But what if you were supposed to be the deliverer? God will send the rescuer. But what if he intended you to be the rescuer? What if you were made for just this time? What if you were put in this position for just this moment? I think too many of us don't anticipate that God can use us for big things. And I think you need to understand that God was working out using you for big things long before the big thing even was a thing. It's cool how God works. And as we study through the Old Testament and into the New Testament, you're going to see time and time again when God called the mundane to matter, when he called the weak to power, when he called the small to big things. Over and over and over, we see God using people because in the end, the power of God is greater than any deficiency you may think you have. Let me say that again. The power of God is greater than any deficiency you may think you have. I pray that each and every one of us will seize the opportunities that are before us. I want to remind you that it's Wednesday, so tonight we have our 7 o'clock fellowship. Here at our church, we do a fellowship every Wednesday night. We get to know each other. We spend some time in prayer. We spend some time in laughter. We spend some time eating together. And that's available for every age. We have a Bible study for our children, and we have youth as well at 7 o'clock. So we want to invite you to be a part of that. If you don't have a church family, come be a part of ours. We'd love to have you. We'd love to get to know you. And who knows if God's not using this moment for a moment that we haven't yet seen. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word.